Hello, good morning. This is Vince Kolb-Lugo doing my walkthrough of my high-fidelity prototype for CSCE 190 for Dr. Portia Plant. It's about 10:12 a.m. on this April 27th. It's Monday. And my program, or my prototype, is actually two different things. It's a desktop software application and a mobile one. I'll go through both of those for you. I used Mockflow, which had some limitations. I only had 3 pages I could work with, which means that a lot of the buttons that would have ordinarily leapt to another page or opened some menus, I've had to just draw those menus onto the screen and then use arrows to point towards them. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll act like I've just been on my desktop and I just opened the application. It's called V2T Scribe. That's voice to text scribe. You can see right here, the opening thing tells you very clearly what you need to do to get started. Press Shift Spacebar, that's to start a recording automatically, or you can open an existing file. So for this moment, we'll just pretend that I've started a recording by hitting Shift Spacebar. And just really quickly before we get too far, an important note, when this file is being transcribed, a lot of the actions can be executed without interrupting what's going on. The only thing that's going to interrupt it is a save or a save as action. That'll have to stop it. You'll see a pop-up menu where you want to name it, save it, maybe choose a file type, and then a location. But all right, so let's say I've just hit Shift Spacebar, and that brings me up to bam, right here. My opening thing, I've got an audio file that starts to record. We got a decibel meter down here that's just letting you know about how loud it is. Then you can also see that we've got a little bit of stuff, a little bit of a media player kind of going on here. This whole thing kind of has basic features of a media player and basic features of a simple rich text editor, which you'll see a little bit later. So this is the main thing. We got the big window here, and we've got several little sub windows that go in. We got the audio file right here being transcribed. There might be a cursor that's letting you know where you are in this file, so that you can see how far you have or where to go. There'd be a little ticker or something too, maybe that's down there. Now, one of the main things about this voice to text scribe is that it's going to transcribe an audio file, give you a text file to work with as well. But you can also highlight segments in that as it's transcribing that, let's say you're a student and you brought your computer to a lecture and you want to put notes in a running note you have for this class or for this chapter. And so you'd be able to do that using the actions in V2T Scribe. You can use hotkeys, or you can use the mouse, or you can go up here and click file for a lot of these things. So one of the key features is you can segment off different things. So as you see right here, we've got a thing, segment 1, that's just a basic name, and it'd have a start time and an end time that you would be able to see. Segment 2, a start time and an end time. And when you click that segment, let's say that you've been recording and you heard something that your professor really emphasized, you thought was important for your notes you might need for a test later. So you decide, bam, I'm going to go ahead and segment that off using the hotkey. And then I want to go ahead and go into it and just name it, know what it is, and maybe send it somewhere. So let's say I've hit this. So click, click. That takes you down to another little window like this. It opens up. I mean, it might open up and be superimposed on this guy. It might open to another one. I think it'll just be superimposed on this big up here. And it's going to have a transcribed text down here, whatever the length of the segment is. So whenever you started here to there, and then it will go ahead and have a name. And up here in the window, it will have that segment name as well. And I had gone back and forth on making this a simple text editor, like a Notepad that's on Microsoft computers, or just something really basic. I decided to do a basic rich text editor, just so that you could go ahead and do some things to the text if you really wanted to emphasize some parts or really just change the format a little. You'd have that option. And the point is that you'd be able to read out the text from the audio file. Ideally, this would be pretty accurate, but if it's not, you can make some simple adjustments right here by immediately clicking into it, just going in and typing like, hey, that word is definitely spelled wrong. Let me use the right word. Or maybe there's a homonym or homophone, I forget which one, issue. It transcribed the wrong text, and it should have been maybe here, H-E-A-R, and it transcribed H-E-R-E. But that's something that you could go in and fix pretty easily. Now, after you've made the modifications you need to, you would be able to just go ahead and save that if you wanted to, save the file name, and then it would go right back up here, and seg1 would say whatever that segment name actually is. Or you could go ahead and choose to hit this action over here, send to, and what that's going to do is give you the option of sending it to, again, one of these maybe running notes that I talked about. So let's pretend like I've got this would be like a document, Word document here. Maybe I've got a PowerPoint going on and I want to go ahead and send it to this PowerPoint. Or maybe I've just got a OneNote as well and I just want to send it to this OneNote. What that would do is it would send the text over to it into that that already created file. And then when you open that file, you'd have a way to incorporate that in it as you wanted to. So if it's just a text file and you know that you need to just move it into a different section of where the notes were, you could do that if you've got some power notes going on. If it's a PowerPoint, you'd be able to put it in the correct slide that you want to put it in. So kind of gone through the segments there. And again, these would be buttons. And this might be a button. I don't think it'd be a button. I think it'd just be have a cursor that lets you know where you're going. Down here, we've got this history panel. And really the whole point of the history panel is to just kind of have a marker for what you've been doing, just breadcrumbs of your entire journey. So let's say you remember you did a thing a few actions back that maybe you want to get back to. You don't remember where exactly, but this would kind of indicate where you are in that workflow. And you could go back and try and maybe undo something to there, or at least it would undo anything if you actually highlighted it all the way back to one of these ones. But you'd just be able to see what you were doing if that's all you're trying to do, and maybe work from there, find your solution, and keep going forward. All right, and this next real big feature of this is the text preview, like I said, and that'll open up, if you were to click on this guy, that won't just open you to this segment thing, that'll open you here to, whoops, sorry, it's on another page. That'll open you to your text preview page. And your text preview page, again, will be, it'll have elements of a basic rich text file editor. So you can do some bolding, italicize, underline, do a little bit of formatting, mess with your font sizes. And it's going to have the entire file transcribed here. It won't be the most perfect transcription because it's not a stenographer. It can't make the decisions like when a paragraph might end, when it won't. But maybe it will. Who knows? We'll see how good technology is at that point. But again, you'd be able to make some simple edits to the text right in here, like any other Word editor. And then you'd have your basic options. You'd click File up here, for example, and that would open up to this menu right here. And you'd be able to save as, and put it there. Now, the idea is that when you're completely done with the file that you have, you'll open up this guy and just maybe run through it, or just automatically open it up and save as, worry about that later. And that's really your option, or the user's option, whatever they need. It just gives you the whole file that you have to work with in case you really do need that text in front of you and not just the audio file. So when someone's done with this, whoops, wrong. We'll go back to the home screen. And so you would just play an entire audio file, you'd get the stuff you need, and you'd send each segment where you needed it for whatever work it is you're doing. When I came up with this idea, I have 3 different kind of personas of the people who would use it. Students might use it in the ways I really just described here. Journalist was another one. Just I happen to work in media, and so this is something that would be really helpful to me if it existed and was really cheap. These things do exist, but you do have to pay a good, sometimes more than you'd be willing to pay for them. And so you'd finish, the last persona was more of a, how do I say, an older person who's maybe not the best with technology and needs something for taking down oral histories, or needs to be able to record interviews and maybe pull quotes from that to use for, maybe they're running a nonprofit and they've got to put together a presentation so they can pitch for more funding, and they want to just have these personal stories for people to really highlight some of the work that they do. And so this would be a quick way for them to do an interview with somebody, find a good pull quote, pull that out, make a nice graphic, and then present that to whoever it is they're trying to get some funds from. And that's why I kept a lot of this actually pretty simple functionality. There's not a whole lot that goes on in here, just a few buttons, just a few different things. And again, everything can be done through buttons or mouse actions, mouse events. And just try to make it pretty easy and accessible to all. So I think that kind of gets through all of the desktop app. We'll move to the mobile version now. And the whole idea of having a mobile version is that sometimes people only have the phone in their pocket and they still need to get to work or still need to be able to do the work they're doing for one of the 3 different people I've described. And this is just another option for people to do it. This has slightly less functionality than the desktop app or software. It really only lets you record a file immediately as if you're going to take a voice note, and then do some actions while that is recording, and then you can save. You can do some of the same actions, but you'll see. I'll go through a little walkthrough right here. So I've got my iPhone. I just used an iPhone because it's the current phone I have, and it makes it a little easier. And just before we get too deep in here, I do have a quick little note on this guy. Oops. Yeah, just the opening screen. Unlike the desktop app, the mobile version can only transcribe audio files that it records, hence the start button, as in start recording. That's the main thing you can do, and that's how you start everything on this mobile app. You cannot just open a file and start transcribing it. So let's say we've hit start, boop. That's going to go ahead and start recording this audio file. You got a graphic right here, just like the OneNote graphic, just to show you that you're doing something, and it looks kind of cool. And then you've got 3 main actions that you can do here. You can immediately stop the recording, which let's pretend we accidentally clicked that. Let's say we hit stop. That'll stop the recording and immediately snap you over to this next menu right here where it's going to ask you to name the file. And so let's say I click that. That would just let me change. You would get your what is it? Sorry. Get your little minute tech keyboard here, your minute keyboard, and you'd be able to type in the file name and it would just save it there. And then you'd hit save, just a quick save option, and you might have it set up where it would open to another little window where it's asking you maybe where you want to save it specifically. If you have the different things synced to your phone, you can maybe save it to a OneNote, you could just save it to the cloud, you can save it directly to your phone, whatever you choose. And then send to. So after you've saved it, let's say you also want to send this guy somewhere else. You want to, immediately get it off your phone and put it on the cloud or something like that. You could just do that with send to. So maybe this save option is really just pointless, but that's neither here nor there. And then you have a cancel button in case you accidentally hit stop. You're like, oh crap, I got to get back to this. In which case, if you hit cancel, it would go back to recording. It's just that for that moment, you would lose whatever it is was recording at the time you hit stop because it had to load this new screen. It would have to just stop the recording entirely. I tried to cover that a little bit in the opening few minutes. So let's pretend like you're still recording. And again, you hear a professor or whoever you're talking with say something that's like, man, that's a gold nugget. I need it. So you'd hit mark. And you hit mark this time, and there's not going to be anything real special that goes on. There would be a way to see it in this graphic that from the moment you hit mark, this would change color of some sort. So if this is red, maybe this would start highlighting yellow. And then you'd hit mark a second time, and that would end that kind of marking. It'd be like a highlighter action. So you would see that visually here, but it would only be done through these buttons. Now, whenever you'd hit mark a second time, it's going to automatically save a default name to that. You won't see it right on here. The way you'd access that is through this button, segments. So you click segments, and let's say we've done that. That's going to take you to a list of all the different segments you've saved on that audio file that you're recording right now. It's going to have some basic stuff like segment A might be the default name. You can go in and either through one of these buttons here, one of these actions, or through slide. I'm not entirely sure. I tried to show both because, again, without all the buttons to normally click here and then get linked to another page and really show you, I've just got to kind of show all possible options or draw a bunch of arrows and diagrams. So you would be able to name the file, see its start time and end time in the file, and then have an option to send this immediate segment to one of those previous spots I've told you. If you've got a OneNote going, if you've got another Word document going, that's your file, or if maybe you've got a PowerPoint or something you want to send that to, you would have that same sort of option to do that. And then let's say you accidentally just marked a segment you didn't really need. You could just delete that guy right there. Okay. And I think that really gets through a lot of this. That's the primary functions of this whole thing. And I tried to keep it very simple, not too many buttons, not too many actions that you can do, because I envision the users being a variety of people, older people especially, who need to be able to use technology like this and who are maybe not the most tech savvy. So that's why I try to keep it pretty basic. And then I also try to keep it really basic because I just want to function on the performance of it. It doesn't need to be more than a transcription kind of tool. That's really the primary focus behind all this. So with that concludes my high fidelity prototype of V2T Scribe. That's voice to text scribe. Again, here's the desktop version as well. And I hope you like it. How do I stop this? Yeah. Right.